I used to think that the phrase rising like a phoenix out of the ashes, I always used to think that was so cliche, but I literally walked through the fire of hell with my mental health issues, with my suicide attempt, with my house burning down in front of my eyes. I walked through hell, and I did rise out of the ashes like a phoenix, because now I've got an amazing life, an amazing family, and the 3 words that I repeat to myself very often every single day, and I want you and I want the listeners to repeat these words as often as they need to. You are enough. I am enough.
Welcome to OTR, Achieving Mental Health for Real. This is where we talk honestly about what people actually live with: anxiety, depression, ADHD, dyslexia, OCD, trauma, and more. No stigma, no sugarcoating, just real conversations about how you think, how you feel, and how you move through the world. If you're looking for clarity, validation, and a place where your story makes sense, you're in the right space. Let's get into it.
Lindsay Stadel is a wife, mother, grandmother, and the force behind 4 successful companies. But the reason she's here isn't business, it's the part of her story shaped by suicide loss and her own fight through mental health challenges. As an award-winning author and emerging public speaker, she's using her voice to confront stigma with honesty, compassion, and a kind of hope that isn't manufactured. Lindsay's story isn't polished. It's the story of someone who kept moving when stopping felt easier, a real look at survival from inside the fire, when you can't see anything past the pain. This is about the part of you that hasn't had the chance to exist yet. The part that rises not because it's strong, but because it isn't done. Audio note: this episode was recorded right before we switched over to the new sound chain. You'll hear the upgraded audio starting with the next release, but everything is clear and fully listenable.
Now, here's Bob with today's show.
Hello, and welcome to OTR, Lindsay. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Didn't get much sleep, but I think that's good. Could you tell a listener a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. I am a wife, a grandmother, a mother. I live in a small rural community in Northeast Kansas. We have 4 family businesses that are all in the ag field. I am a published author. I will have 4 books total released by spring of next year. They're collaboration books, so I've got like a chapter in each of these books. And the reason why I am a published author is because I am sharing my story of how I attempted suicide and lived to tell my story.
So I always begin with your childhood. What do you remember about your childhood?
I don't remember much from my childhood. I grew up in a divorced household, so I spent most of the year at my mother's house. I went and visited my father every other weekend, and then for a month during the summer, there were a lot of arguments and disagreements at my mother's house between my mother and my stepfather, and then also between my mother and I. We didn't get along quite often. We were at each other's throats, how mothers and children are at some point during their life. And I remember a lot of times whenever my mother would get mad at me, she would always, tell me that she was going to ship me off to Timbuktu was her favorite place to say. I'm just going to ship you off. So I do hold some trauma from my childhood because of the arguments and the fights between my mother and I. But the biggest thing from my childhood was when I was 14, I was raped. And when I told my parents about it, they really didn't do anything about it. They didn't believe me. They told me it was my fault and just never took me to get any psychological help. And that led into drug use, that led into lying and stealing and, skipping school. And then, I moved out of the house right the day I graduated high school and continued to spiral from there. I found myself in jail a couple times and, just never really got over or got through the childhood trauma that I was carrying.
When did you start feeling like you were depressed?
That started after I had gotten raped when I was 14. And
can you go into that at all, how that happened, or you don't want to talk about that?
No, I can go into that.
Okay.
I'm an open book with all my experiences now. So
how was it that you had that situation?
So I was grounded. I was grounded a lot during my childhood, and I was not supposed to be out of the house, but I snuck out, and one of my girlfriends picked me up, and we went to this place in town. It's called Aggieville. It's basically like the main drag where everybody went on a Friday and Saturday night to party. They drive the square, and you'd see people as you were driving, of course. And so we just went out to Aggieville, and we were having a good time. I ran into a gentleman that I liked. I was a freshman in high school, and one of the boys that I liked was at Aggieville, and he asked me if I wanted to ride with him. So sure, I jumped out of my girlfriend's car and into his, and we drove around for a while, and then proceeds to leave and says that we're going to go somewhere else. And at that point, I kind of felt trapped because he wasn't stopping to let me out of the car. So he proceeded to take me up to a little parking area by the lake that is in our community. And it was there that, he overpowered me. I remember, yelling and screaming, but he didn't stop. The whole incident lasted probably close to a half an hour by the time he got me home. And I went straight to my bedroom and, just hid in my bedroom for the rest of the weekend. I was in tears.
So you didn't report it?
Right.
Okay.
No, I didn't. Terrible. And it took a couple of weeks before I was finally able to tell anyone about it. And I think that may have been why my mom didn't believe me, because I didn't tell her right away, or maybe it was because I lied about a lot of things. Both of my older sisters believed me, and my father believed me, but no one else in the family did. So between my two older sisters and my dad, they tried to get me help, but my mother said that she wasn't going to pay for it. She wasn't going to pay to send me to a therapist. So I had to quit going.
Wow. Okay. So you went for a while to the therapist?
I went to 2 therapy sessions, and that was it.
Okay. All right. So obviously that didn't help too much.
Right.
So is that when you really started to feel depressed?
Absolutely, yes,
Yeah, okay.
because I didn't feel like I had anybody, in my corner, and
Oh,
so
yeah.
that was really when my downhill started.
Okay. And so what was your depression like? Did you just stay in your room or not go to school? How did it, how did you act out, I guess?
I stayed in my room a lot. I stopped eating. I really didn't eat much at all. I just felt sick to my stomach all the time.
Mm.
And I cried a lot, but not in front of anybody because I didn't want them saying that I was just doing it to get attention.
Mm.
And so I just, yeah, stayed in my room a lot. I still snuck out. I would sneak out of the house so I could stand outside and smoke a joint, or
Mm-hmm.
I started smoking cigarettes because it made me feel cool. It made me feel
Yeah.
included, with the kids at school that would skip school to go and smoke cigarettes in the zoo parking lot that was just down from our school. And, so that's what I did.
So you were depressed, and then you started. When did you first start to think about suicide?
My very first suicidal ideation that I can recall was when I was 14, shortly after I was raped.
Was that really very serious, or
It's, I didn't have like a plan. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just didn't felt like I wanted to live. It didn't feel like I wanted to live anymore.
Mhm.
And so, I get out of the house at night and hope that a car would come along that I could jump in front of,
Wow.
or, something like that.
Okay.
But it never went to the extent of actually attempting to take my life.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I could understand when you're depressed. I had major depression, and I had to have my sister talk me down because I was ready to go at that point.
Hmm.
And I know how bad it can get, but it also gets better as well.
Right.
When did you first start, I guess, recovering from all of this?
Honestly, I never started recovering from all of the childhood trauma until after my suicide attempt as an adult, and that was only 8 years ago. So I
Okay.
carried it for um, 15 years.
Did you go to college at all?
I went to a community college.
Okay. And then where did you go to work?
I
Like,
did odd jobs, just anything I could find. Just,
okay.
just really, it was more to get me out of my mom's house
Okay.
because, like I said, I felt unseen and I felt like I needed to just move out so I could start my own life right after high school.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how long after you started working did you think about, I'm depressed. What am I going to do about it?
I thought quite often about suicide as a young adult, and I went from graduating high school in one relationship to into another relationship and into another one, just back to back to back. I was never single for more than like a week. I
Hmm.
couldn't. I just felt like I always had to have a boyfriend.
Right. Right. You didn't
Um,
like to be alone
right.
at all. Right. Okay. So how old were you when you did start thinking about recovery and getting better?
Yeah, I was about 38
Okay.
when I finally started to think about getting help. So I had gone a good 24 years of up and down, thinking
Hmm.
about suicide, being depressed. And the only
Right.
reason why I sought out help when I was 38 was because my family had an intervention.
Oh.
Yeah.
And why was there an intervention?
The intervention happened after I tried to kill myself.
Okay.
I
Can
jumped out of
you,
a moving vehicle going 30 miles an
oh
hour.
my God.
And
Can you take us through that? What happened there?
absolutely, in that time, this was, let's see, I got divorced in August 2016, and I started seeing another gentleman who turned out to be my abuser.
Hmm.
And at the same time, I was also seeing another gentleman who was my best friend, and he turned out to be my savior. And I'll explain why here in just a couple minutes. But I was still lying, stealing, and cheating because I was seeing two men off and on at the same time. I just was in a really dark place. My father passed away in 2014, and
Hmm.
that hit me really hard.
Yeah.
And then the failed marriage hit me hard again. And I just didn't feel like I deserved anything better than the abuse that I had so accustomed to my whole life.
Yeah.
And so I continued to see this gentleman who was abusive, and his daughter was abusive to me and to my son. And once I finally decided I needed help getting away from him, that was, when my best friend and we were talking about how to break away, how for me to break away from him. And this was on September 24th of 2017.
Hmm.
Living in a rural community, you go out driving the back roads, the gravel roads, and you drink and you listen to music and you have fun.
Hmm.
And so that's what we were doing. We were just driving around, we were talking, we were drinking. I had only had two wine coolers, so it's not like I had drank very much. But
Right.
it got to the point that we ran into one of my best friend's sons who was very upset with him that he was, being, or that he was with me, that we were riding around together, because his son did not like me.
Hmm.
And so he basically told his dad that he had to choose either the family or me.
Wow.
And yeah, and he told him, he's like, I'm not gonna choose because I'm gonna have you both in my life. I'm an adult, I can do that.
Hmm.
Well, I was already in a dark mind frame because I was trying to figure out how to break away from my abuser, and all I heard was, I'm not gonna choose. So I took that as, I'm not gonna choose because I'm not, kind of against me. I'm not going to have her in my life.
Oh,
Which is not, it's not at all what he meant. And I know that
okay.
now.
Yeah.
But back then I thought that he wasn't going to choose me. So,
Yeah.
we were driving. I told him that he needed to take me to my car so I could go home. We were driving down the gravel road that my car was parked on, and I just all of a sudden, I mean, everything just went dark. I felt a very darkness in my soul. I felt very heavy. And in an instant, I decided that the world, and especially my children, would be better off without me
Mhm.
because I had created such a web of lies. I didn't see any way out of it. So I opened the door of his truck. I remember the light coming on when I opened the door. I remember screaming. And then I don't remember anything else for 24 hours,
Mhm.
approximately 24 hours. When I woke up in the hospital, my body was broken. I had broken bones. I had cuts and scrapes everywhere. I was bald. They had to shave my head because I landed on my face.
Mhm.
And when I landed on the gravel road, it was with such impact that it tore my forehead, the skin on my forehead away from my scalp.
Ugh.
So they had to shave my head to do surgery to stitch that up. But I also, when I hit, it turned my neck with so much force. It
Mhm.
twisted it that I tore 3 nerves completely out of my spinal column.
Ooh.
And so now I have a lifelong permanent disability because there's no fixing nerves when they get torn.
No, no. Yeah, I have stenosis, so I know what you mean.
So, I mean, I live constantly every single second of every single day. I live with nerve pain that feels like fire. And so I live with my decision every single second of every single day. I never get a moment's rest. I never get a
Hmm.
moment where I can forget about what I did to myself.
Yeah,
But,
I hear you.
I woke up in the hospital on suicide watch. The very first thing that came to my mind was, why didn't it work?
Mm.
The
Wow.
second thing that came to my mind after looking and seeing my daughter sitting by my hospital bed in tears was, I need to get better for my kids.
Yeah, they would have been devastated. I mean, that's what I always say about suicide. I mean, the person committing it, if it's successful, okay, but all those people that you hurt, it's just bad, and it's not necessary because you can get better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And see, I didn't leave a note because it was an instant, all of a sudden decision. I wasn't planning it. So
Right.
kids would have grown up wondering why I left them.
Yeah, they would have been devastated. I
Yeah,
mean, it's bad enough when your parents die, even when you're older. But imagine if you're younger and they die. It's just
right.
it makes every Christmas bad, every holiday bad. So
Yeah,
yeah, so that's
exactly.
why I always say don't do it because you're an important person to a lot of people. You
Right.
might not think so, but you are, and you have to try to get better.
Hmm.
And obviously, you got that intervention. And what did who was in that?
My stepdad and his new wife. I mean, not technically my stepdad because him and my mom are divorced, but he was a father figure in my life for 20 years. So,
Uh,
I after I left the hospital on suicide watch for a week, I moved in with my stepdad and his wife, and I lived with them for 2 weeks. And then my sisters, my daughter, a couple of my nieces all came up to my stepdad's house and convinced me that I needed real intense psychiatric help.
mhm.
And with hesitation, I agreed. And by doing that, I knew that if I wanted to get custody of my son back, I was going to need to get help. and it was going to look better to the court system if I did it voluntarily instead of
Right.
being forced to.
Mm-hmm.
So I committed myself to a mental health facility, and I lived there for a week.
Right.
That was when I had no reason to lie anymore. I had no reason to hide what I had done. So that was the first time since I was 14 that I was 100% honest. And
Yep.
by doing that, I felt a huge weight lift off of my
Mm-hmm.
shoulders because I told the truth of everything that had happened.
Right.
They got me on medication, an antidepressant and an anti-anxiety pill,
Mm-hmm.
and got me in touch with a therapist, a local therapist. And once I left, well, while I was still at the psychiatric hospital, my best friend came to visit me. And when he walked in, I could see just how devastated he was. And he told me that for 2 days after I jumped out of his truck, he didn't know if I was alive or not
Mm.
because no one would tell him.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So it wasn't until I contacted him right before I went in to get psychiatric help at the mental hospital. He found out that I was doing okay. He found out that I was alive, but he did not know what was going on other than that.
Right.
So I reached out and told him what I was doing, and I called him a couple of days later while I was in the hospital because we had phone privileges once a day. And I
Mm-hmm.
called him to let him know how things were going. And I asked him if he would be interested in coming to visit me on Family Day. He was the only one that I let come to visit me.
Did they
And
want to, your siblings and your parents? Were they alive still?
my family, once I went into the psychiatric hospital, that kind of started to be the decline of me and my family.
Yeah, that's understandable.
They, one, didn't want to be associated with someone who tried to kill themselves because that
Right.
was embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
Two, even though they were in the intervention and convinced me to go get help, they didn't want to be associated with someone who had to go to a mental hospital because it's embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, it's the stigma that's out there. People are very embarrassed and ashamed of a simple problem in one of your organs, like your heart, like your liver. I
Yeah,
mean, you needed the help, you needed the medication, and you got it.
right.
So once you got out of the psych hospital, you just continued on your medication, right?
I
Did you go to
did.
any? Did you go to any groups or
I did.
stuff like? Yeah.
I
Okay.
started going to a therapist. It was very intense. I was going once a week for about a
Mm-hmm.
year, and then I switched to every other week, and then once a month. And I did that. I was seeing my therapist for 5 years,
Okay.
and it was after once I had hit my basically the 5th year mark of the first day that I saw her was when we decided together that I was mentally healthy enough and strong enough that she thought I had, good enough coping skills that that she didn't think that I needed to come and see her anymore. And I agreed.
Okay.
I felt very
Mm-hmm.
strong and very healthy mentally and
Yeah.
physically.
Yeah. That's great.
And, so even to this day, it's been 5 years ago, or a little more than 5 years ago was the last time that I saw her. And
Okay.
I'm off of my antidepressant medication. I'm off of my anti-anxiety pills. So
Okay.
she really, really helped me and helped me realize that the truth is always better than a
Oh,
lie,
yeah. Right. Right.
And
Was it like cognitive type therapy, or what kind of therapy did you believe in?
it was a lot of talk therapy.
Okay.
It was mainly talk therapy. We did try, it wasn't it wasn't meditation or it wasn't hypnosis, but it was kind of just close your eyes and breathe and think about what you've done, visualize what you've done, explain what happened in those circumstances.
Right.
And, so once I realized I needed to tell her the truth about everything, that was
Right.
really when the help started. And
Oh,
my best friend and I decided that we would give our relationship a second chance. But that was only after I had gone to, see my therapist for a while. And
mm-hmm.
he told me from day one, he's like, no more lying, no more, cheating, no more stealing. If you lie to me, that's not going to work. This is not going to work.
Right.
So he came with me a few times to therapy, because she thought, and I thought it would be good to have him there so he could hear some of the things that I had not told him, and some of the reasons behind what I had been doing. And we really, our relationship really took off from there.
And you, did you get married, or?
We did. We ended up getting
Okay.
married in April of
Mm-hmm.
2020.
Okay. Good year. Well, that was a great. Did you actually have a wedding ceremony?
We did not. We did. One of our friends is a ordained minister, and so we asked him if he would marry us, and he was very happy to. And we just had a small ceremony in our house. But it really wasn't even in our house, because this is a whole nother story. I'll give you just some tidbits on this, and you'll be able to see all the chaos in my life. So my best friend, who I was dating at the time, his oldest son got engaged. So he moved out. My best friend moved out of his house, giving his oldest son and his fiance their house, his house, because he and his wife had divorced, and so they moved into their family house. And my best friend and I moved to a different town. That way, we could get away from all the rumors that were going around our small town.
Right.
And so we decided to build our own house. And so that's what we started to do.
Wow.
It was fall of 2019. We started building what's called a shop. It was a shop house. And we were supposed to move in March of 2020. But 10 days before we were supposed to move in, it burnt to the ground.
Oh, my God.
Yes. Thankfully, no one was in it at the time. None of our possessions were in it at the time. Was
it like electrical fire?
It was. It was electrical. A battery pack to a cordless, like the cordless drill. We were building it ourselves. All of our
I got you.
employees, our kids, we were building it ourselves.
Wow, that's really
So
yeah.
yeah. So we were now, I mean, in essence, we were now homeless because the place that we
Mm,
were living at, we were just renting and we were
mm,
supposed to be moving out of it. They found someone else to rent it. So we
oh
had to
boy.
move. So
Right.
we bought this little trailer house. It was a piece of junk. We bought it for like $8,000. No, we bought it for $4,000. And it was a piece of junk, but it was going to get us by until we figured out what else we were going to do.
Okay.
And so we also decided we were not going to put off getting married any longer. So we got married in April of 2020, standing in the front room of this crappy little apartment or
And yeah,
trailer house.
and right in the middle of the worst part of COVID, right?
Yeah. Yes, it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
And
That's
we had, our friends over, our kids over. We did all of that in April of 2020. And then we decided we were going to just hire someone to build our house, a new house. And then in October of 2020, we moved into our second new house, the new house that was built.
right.
And that's where we live now.
Right.
And that was really when our businesses took off.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you. You're involved in 5 different businesses,
We have 4 family businesses.
and you run them together.
Yes.
Okay. Briefly, what are those businesses?
We have a farm and ranch. We have a silage cutting business where we go out into like cornfields and, the big John Deere machines go out and suck all of that corn in and
Wow.
cut it up into very fine pieces. It turns it into livestock feed.
Right.
And then we have an over the road trucking company where we
Okay.
can haul commodities like livestock feed. And then we can also haul livestock. We specialize in hauling cattle. And
Uh-huh.
then we have a commodity brokering company where we help find loads for outside truck drivers.
Okay. So it's all
Yes.
it's truck related, all these businesses.
Yeah, it's all
That's good.
it's
That's
all
good.
ag related. Yeah.
And you do what, like accounting work for that or paperwork?
Yeah, I'm
Or,
the office manager. I
okay.
do
Yeah.
payroll, I do the accounting, I do, all everything. Accounts payable, accounts receivable. My daughter, our daughter works in the office with me.
Wow. How old is she?
And then she is 20, going to be 26
Okay.
in December.
That sounds like fun. Kind of.
Uh-huh. And then our 3 boys also work with us.
Wow. That's terrific.
Yes, our youngest is 16, so
Wow.
we share custody with his dad, so he's only with us every other week, but
Okay.
he works with us,
Yeah.
sometimes when he's here.
You have a
And
separate office area?
yes,
Okay.
we have a business office where my daughter and I work, and then there's an office attached to the shop for the guys.
Terrific.
And we have 13 employees, and we have 3 beautiful, amazing grandchildren.
Oh my God. Yes. I have 7.
Yes.
I have 7.
Do you?
I don't get to see them because I'm in a different state, but I'm going to try to rectify that if I can.
Yeah, our grandchildren, my husband's oldest, Eric, he and his wife have 2, Stetson and Josie. And then my daughter Cassidy and her husband
Terrific.
Jacob have Junie.
Wow.
And
You're like the
So
Waltons.
Stetson and Josie are only about a quarter of a mile away from us.
Oh, that's nice.
And Junie lives an hour away from us, but we still get to see her almost every day because she comes with Cassidy to work every day, so she doesn't have to pay for childcare. So, yeah, we get to see all three of our grandkids almost every single day.
Oh, my God.
And it's amazing.
I wish. Family is everything, as you probably know by now, because if you go through any kind of recovery, you really understand what's important in life, I think. Most people that go through recovery understand that money, power, all these other things mean nothing when it comes to family and a loving relationship. Those are the things that they're the holy grail.
Right.
You know? So,
well, and see, I am the third oldest of 9 between the divorced household. Okay. I do not have contact with any of my siblings.
Right.
I do not have contact with my stepmom. My father passed away in 2014, so I don't have contact with his widow. I do not have contact with my stepdad or his new wife.
Yeah.
Only people, and I've got nieces and nephews. Yeah. I've got a relationship with 2 of my nieces and a relationship with my mother. That's it. Out of my entire family.
Well, that's because they're not good for you right now, or maybe ever. Yeah. I mean,
right. Very, very toxic.
Yeah, toxic.
And so, my family is, and this is going to sound strange, but go with me on this.
No.
My family, of course, my husband's family is now my family. My daughter-in-law's families are my family. My son-in-law's family is my family. But also my husband's ex-wife and her husband are my family.
Terrific.
Because we share kids, we share grandkids.
Life is about family, about relationships. That's all it's about.
Yeah.
So you got it right. You're doing the right thing. I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
The beautiful story.
In my front room, in my house, in our front room, we have a gigantic family picture. And it includes my daughter-in-law's families. My son-in-law's family couldn't make it because they live about 10 hours away. But the picture includes my husband's ex-wife and her husband. Yeah. And people always they're just so confused. Why do you have your husband's ex-wife in a picture, in your family picture? And I tell them, because she's my family.
Wow. Yeah,
I grew up in a divorced household. I know how hard it is. I'm not gonna let my grandkids see what I went through in a divorced household.
Yeah. You're breaking the cycle. That's terrific. The recovery you made was astonishing, and it's a great story for everyone. Now, the last thing is you're active in advocacy. What do you do in that area?
Yes, I have decided that I was going to do everything I can do, because I'm supposed to be here. I lived through something very traumatic. And so my mission now is to shatter the silence, break the stigma around the word suicide and around mental health. And I am now getting onto stages, meetings, to help. I tell my story, but I also share ways that people can identify those that are having a traumatic, a mental issue, whether it be depression, anxiety, or even suicidal ideation.
What was your diagnosis? I never asked. What was your diagnosis?
My diagnosis was major depressive disorder, I had some bipolar traits, but I wasn't actually diagnosed with bipolar.
Okay.
But I did have some traits and extreme anxiety
and PTSD, right? Probably.
and PTSD, absolutely.
Yeah. And you recovered from all of that. Yes.
Yes.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very doable. And that's what this show is all about, to tell people, to validate them, to give them space, to say, look, stop it. You can get better if you want to. You can get better. And that's what the show is about. And you're
Right.
you're living proof. I'm in a way living proof, although I'm not all the way there. You know, I had so many problems, and it goes on and on. But I'm pretty content most of the time. Sometimes my demons come back and I have to fight them and all of that. But most of the time, I'm pretty good, and I'm working towards all of the time being pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm achieving mental health for real with everyone else on this podcast. So it was great. I mean, it was great talking to you. I always give my guests the last word if they want to say something to our audience. Do you have any links or anything you want to give?
I do. You know, I used to think that the phrase rising like a phoenix out of the ashes, I always used to think that was so cliche.
Mm-hmm.
But I literally walked through the fire of hell with my mental health issues, with my suicide attempt, with my house burning down in front of my eyes. I walked through hell, and I did rise out of the ashes like a phoenix, because now I've got an amazing life, an amazing family, and the 3 words that I repeat to myself very often every single day. And I want you and I want the listeners to repeat these words as often as they need to. You are enough. I am enough.
Amen to that. I hope everyone hears that. You know, I urge people to hang in there. Go and get better. If you need medication, get it. If you don't get it. But get some counseling. Get maybe some groups will help you. Get off of anything you're on. That's the first step. It's hard, but you have to do it. You have to do it. There's too many people that love you that you're going to upset. And even if there aren't, you deserve to live. You were born. You're a person. You're a being. You deserve it. So go help yourself. That's what I say. And I hope even one person would be enough. Because if you save one person, you save 1,000,000, is what I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And also I advocate for a better world where people aren't warring and powering and moneying. That's a word. Where people understand the value of life, which is relationships, connections, love. That's the value of life. Everything else is superficial and just not that important unless, if you're out of money, yeah, it's really important. But once you have something where you could live semi-comfortably, then you got to think about how you want your life to be. Do you want to just go, make more money? Or do you want to have a comfortable life and have people have time to see your family? Do you want to just work like a workaholic, or do you want to see your beautiful, wonderful children and grandchildren? I mean, my grandchildren are so wonderful. I mean, it's the best thing in the world. So please get some help. And you'll be okay. You will be okay if you get help.
Yes, you will be.
I thank you so much for taking the time out. Hopefully you get back to I guess those were your grandkids?
Yes.
Yeah. And thank you. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for such an inspirational story. It was terrific to hear.
Thank you so much for having me and giving me a platform to share my story on.
Yes. Okay. Take care, and maybe we'll meet
Thank
again
you.
someday. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye-bye.